But right now, that's the one thing you could do to make yourself stick out is just change the language on your website. Nobody cares that you've been serving the Dallas County area for 17 years. Literally, no one cares. They care if you can help them in that very difficult time in their life. And how can you help them?
Hey everyone, Bo Royal here, co-founder and CEO of Pareto Legal, a marketing agency that helps injury lawyers increase their profits with business strategy, digital advertising, and analytics. You're listening to the Pareto Legal podcast, where we feature world-class attorneys, entrepreneurs, and legal experts. And today I'm joined by Ashley Robinson, founder and CEO of Green Cardigan Marketing, a law firm marketing agency specializing in website design, SEO, and social media marketing. In this episode, we'll dive into law firm website tips and best practices to turn website traffic into qualified leads and clients. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bo, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being on. I know we've talked about doing this for a little bit. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of law firm websites, can you talk a little bit about your background? How did you end up specializing in digital marketing and web design for law firms specifically?
Yeah, what a specific niche, right? First of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to talk to you today. I always enjoy our conversations. I was in marketing for several years before I was in automotive advertising. And I worked at an agency where you focus exclusively on automotive. And I knew I loved the concept of just having one niche, right? I remember thinking that about our owner of, man, what a great idea. Our clients truly look at us as the trusted source because that's where we spend all of our time, energy studying. So I love that. And then simultaneously, I'm wanting to have my own business. I'm not a great employee because I just knew I wanted to have my own business. And then I started doing marketing on the side for a law firm, as organic as you can possibly imagine. I started doing his marketing just as a favor, really. And then he tells his partner, and then they kind of operate independently and together. So now I technically have two firms. So I'm like, oh gosh, this is the thing, right? And then there was another lawyer in their office. And so they tell this lawyer. So I'm 3 lawyers deep. And I think I'm just like rocking along. And it finally dawns on me, like, this could be the thing. I actually think it was my husband that was like, hey, this could be like the thing. So that's it. I mean, it was organic as possible. And I started to pick up more and more clients and then quit my job about a day before the world shut down in 2020. It could not predict what was happening, but it was great. I was locked up at home, had nothing else to focus on but this. It was truly like everything aligned. If you are someone who believes that, as I do, of sometimes fate just runs its course, and I've been going at it ever since. So I've been full-time doing it since the beginning of 2020. Was doing it a little bit before, but full throttle since the beginning of the pandemic.
You're a lot like me and a fellow accidental agency owner and falling into this legal niche. It's not like I had this grand plan 5 years ago, but it just kind of, like you said, organically happened. Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing that background. Moving into law firm websites, can you talk about the key components of a successful law firm website?
Yeah, there's a few things, right, with any website, but specifically law firms. And why do I say specifically law firms? Any good website, it's got to be optimized on mobile. It's got to be optimized for Google. But why I say law firm is unique and different, there's a few things. So a law firm is a local business. So you've got to really consider the local SEO when it comes to your Google ranking. But then you're also legal. So we've got to make sure you are fitting in line with your local bar or your state bar association. So a few key components that I would say is you've got to be optimized on mobile. Mobile, again, like your website has got to perform on mobile. We know that 80% of your traffic is going to come from a mobile device when I say optimized on mobile. And it's got to function just as it does, if not better, on your mobile phone. Speed, performance, all the things. And then also, I would say just the clear call to actions. We've got to make sure we're speaking to your client avatar and speaking to the emotion of your clients. If you're a divorce lawyer, we've got to ask rhetorical questions. We cannot just eat up your entire website talking about how great of a lawyer you are. So those are some key components that some may may argue, or some marketing companies may see different. I just, working in this industry, I see the ones that perform best are speaking to their clients' needs. Besides all the technical, it's got to look good on mobile. It's got to be optimized. We've got to have, clear call to actions. We've really got to speak to your client.
You touched on design a little bit and user experience. How, in your opinion, can law firms optimize their website design and user experience to generate more leads and, more importantly, more cases?
Right. Isn't that that's the most important. This is the most important thing. So design, one thing, that's what we've talked about, right? It's got to look good and function. I would really put a big emphasis on that content in order to gain those qualified prospects, turns into leads, turn into clients. We've got to consider the user journey. Take a step back and look at your site. Who are your clients, again, and consider that user journey. Where are you wanting them to start and where are you wanting them to finish? And is it a very clear path along the way? Does it make sense for the user? If you're wanting them to download that free resource, does it make sense? Are you leading them in a way that makes sense for them? And then also be very careful to not have too many call to actions. If you have ultimately book a consult or download this free resource or listen to our podcast, great. You can have a few, but don't have more than that. That's something I see often as well. There's so many things you're wanting your user to do. We don't have time. I mean, we have a 3-second attention span. So what are you wanting them to do? And if you're wanting them to do more than one thing, you probably shouldn't have more than 2 at the very most, but it has to be uber clear. If you're this client, you need to do this. If you're this client, you need to do this. So be very clear on your user journey. And that's not going to help you just on your website. It's just going to help you throughout your firm with your intake process, your sales process, your front of the house people, is being very clear on what you want that user to do and how they should flow through your firm.
So really it's starting with the end in mind and working backwards, basically, right?
Absolutely. In everything you do. Because when you start at the end in mind, you know what their pain points are. Are you worried about losing custody of your child? Are you worried you cannot pay your bills? And that's starting with, because you know them, right? And then you've built everything around them.
Awesome. Ashley, I know that you look at a lot of legal websites. What are some of the most common problems you're seeing with law firm websites today in 2024?
You would think in 2024 that all websites would be great. And I am here to tell you, I look at them every day and they are atrocious. It is astonishing to me the amount of horrible websites I see. And we could have this conversation for days, whether it's the design, whether, again, the clear call to action. The website does not tell me anything about who you are. If you're a business lawyer, or a business lawyer is a good example of, like, you've got to be pretty clear in who you deal with and how you manage your clients. So some problems I see would, again, be the design. The communication is 9 out of 10 websites I'm going to open up and see, oh, this website just talks about how great you are as the lawyer. What makes you different? Because every other law firm website out there is talking about how great they are. I do believe we'll look back in however many number of years, 5 or 8 years, and that will not be such a common problem. But right now, that's the one thing you could do to make yourself stick out, is just change the language on your website. Nobody cares that you've been serving the Dallas County area for 17 years. No, literally no one cares. They care if you can help them in that very difficult time in their life. And how can you help them? Show them how can you help them. Give them client testimonials. Speak to them in a language that they understand. When they read your website, they say, yes, I am going through that. So other than the technical stuff, I see a lot of technical issues of just, again, not optimized well. I speak to a client, they think they're ranking well in Google, and I pull the report and they are in fact not. So maybe to dump those into 3 big buckets, to go back to your original question, would be just the overall design, the tech side of things, optimizing for Google is a major problem. And then the content on the site is most of the time it's not what it should be.
I think the first point you made kind of alluded to positioning as well, where this is a common conversation we're having with clients, which is like, a client might come to us and say, I want more motor vehicle accident cases. And it's like, historically they've positioned themselves as a medical malpractice attorney, right? And so I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying you can generate, car accident cases, but there needs to be a conversation had about how does that, practice area addition impact your firm's perception in your audience's mind if they already kind of know you as the med mal go-to resource, right? So there's a lot of different ways I see firms doing that. They build separate domains by practice area. They just have, a very distinct user experience for like people that are maybe clicking on paid ads, and make sure that they don't see anything about med mal. They only are seeing car accident cases, right? So yeah, I think that's spot on, and it's the positioning. It's so often overlooked, and it just to me it's delusional if you think you can just kind of like enter into a marketplace and start generating cases on a very competitive practice area if the extent of the work you've done is simply like add that practice area to the practice area pages of the website, right? Like that's not right. And there's going to be so many alternatives to your firm that only specialize in, and I know you can't say specialize in the legal world, but they do. They focus on that practice area 24/7, 365. So you really need to build a compelling narrative that conveys why your firm excels at that given practice area and why they should pick you over everyone else. End rant. But I just wanted to say that it's kind of like the position and conversation that needs to be had, and I'm sure you have it too when you're talking about building a website or optimizing a website. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. I think what I hear when I hear you say that is the intentionality behind it, or the lack of intentionality, right? Like, Bo, you and I are very intentional in who we are targeting. But we come from a marketing background, or at least we've trained ourselves in marketing. Lawyers are not, and that's okay. But hire someone who understands positioning and can be intentional about that. Maybe it is having a different website. Maybe it is having the same site but different landing pages and client testimonials that are very clear on what you do. But hire someone who can help you with the intentionality of your positioning.
Well said. Perfect. So I want to talk a little bit about content because you touched on it briefly before. What role does content play in converting website visitors into clients, and what types of content are you recommending to clients? What types of content are most effective?
We see it that the content is everything. It is the most important part when it comes to converting a prospect to a qualified prospect to a lead, and then it's your job to be a good lawyer and convert them to a client, right? So what role does content play? We see that it plays of utmost importance. And then the types of content, again, the we take our clients through a practice of identifying who that client avatar is. Who do you want to, there's different words for this, right? But it's who is your client? Let's define them. Let's put names on them. Ashley does this. Bo does this. This is where they live. This is how much money they make. This is where they drive. These are their interests. And so we define that very clearly and then build the content around that person. So we use terms like emotion-based content. We're asking lots of questions in our content of, does this bother you? Is this a problem? Does this speak to you? So again, when they come to the site, they're like, yes, that is me. We love to put in Green Cardigan, we have this on our site. We love to put videos of our clients above the fold, simply 30 seconds, a minute saying, hey, this is who I am, very quickly, like literally this is my name, but this is why we exist. This is the problem we solve in the market. I'm a divorce lawyer because I'm a product of divorce. I'm now in a blended family, and right, you can see the story I'm telling, and it's playing as soon as you land on my site. You see me as a real human, my Southern accent. I'm right, like you see all the human elements of it. I'm a Yankee, I'm in New York, like I can relate to you because I'm in New York, you hear that accent. Again, remember, you're a local company. A law firm is a local company. Why do we lose sight of that? I think social media has played a factor in that, in law firms losing sight that you're a local-based company. Speak to your local, you're going after 5 counties. Speak to them, talk to them. You're speaking in the same language. Again, if I'm an Alabama lawyer where I'm from, they're going to recognize this accent. And that's an immediate indicator of, okay, this person understands me, right? And I'm going to talk about the town and where I live and where I'm from. So in your content on your site, speak to that person. Get as granular as you can on defining your client avatar, and that's going to help you with your messaging on your site. It's going to help you ask the right questions. It's going to help you probe on the emotional side of things. I know I'm using divorce a lot, but estate planning. It's going to help you probe on whatever their issue is. So that's the style of content as we like to use is very emotion-based, asking questions, speaking to that client.
Yeah, I think going back to what you said about like locality, that's so spot on. And that's a conversation we end up having with clients too, which is like if you make it clear to them that this is the area you serve, you're a resident of this area, that's going to give you more staying power relative to the bigger box law firms like the Morgan & Morgans or the Top Dog Laws that are coming in, they have big budgets, and yeah, they might know some marketing stuff too, and they might do a good job of like making it seem like they're in that market. But I think if you can really lean into those differentiators and say, oh yeah, I grew up on so-and-so street, I'm this sports fan, like that stuff, that could be the thing that ends up having someone to call you, right? Like this is a game won in inches. And I don't know, I feel like leaning into those strengths is key. So I have one more question about content. In terms of like core website content, like are there foundational pieces of content that need to be on the site in your perspective, like regardless of practice area? Like is there like a core like template that you follow to build foundational content?
Yeah, we're always going to have some sort of robust about page. We know it is the most or the second most visited page on any law firm's website. Other than if we're let's say we're taking out the homepage, it is going to be the most visited page on the site is that about page. That tells us, again, humans want to know who they're doing business with. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. So they want to know about their lawyer. So we're going to build out a robust about page. We're going to have a video on the page. We're going to talk about you personally. Again, we're going to try to make it as personable as possible. We're also going to have some sort of FAQ section on the site. And more than just the basic FAQs, I would say 8 to 10. But answer as many questions as you possibly can that your users might have. And this is where our team, we do a great job because all we do is work with lawyers like you, right? So we see, hey, don't get so caught up in what you do. Remember that your users don't understand this, especially in the estate side of things. That's a confusing practice area for us layman folks. I'm going through it now. My husband and I have, just doing our due diligence of updating our will and estate plan. And I'm confused. I'm in this industry. That's our largest base of clients are either family or estate. So this is a great practice for us on our lawyers to say, hey, remember that folks might not understand why you're telling them they need 2 trusts. They have a business and they have real estate. Explain to them the difference in that, especially for an estate planning firm, because the life cycle of their clients could be with them for 20, 30 years. They really need to take care of their clients and help educate them. So for like an estate firm, we're going to have 8 to 10 FAQs. We're going to have a great built out about page. And then something else that we really ensure it's top priority on our SEO plan is areas we serve pages. And we do that for Google, right? We do that. Yeah, the human beings care, but we see it's not high ranking pages in terms of user engagement, but it is helpful in terms of your local SEO ranking is areas we serve. I'm in South Florida. We serve Broward County, Miami-Dade, West Palm, right? So those are examples of building out those area served pages. So those are probably 3 good pillar pages that we ensure on every client's website.
I'm so glad you brought up SEO because it's a perfect segue to my next question, because I know your team handles and helps with the SEO side of things. Can you share some tips for optimizing a law firm website for search engines so that you can generate traffic from Google search or Bing or any of these other platforms?
Yeah, that's It's the million dollar question, right? So to the core of who we are an SEO agency. So I started off with SEO and then quickly added on building websites. So those are our two, like, bread and butter. So our clients usually come in because they need a website facelift, redesign, and then they transition into monthly SEO. And then we do a few other services that complement SEO, social media, email, video, but it's all to complement either website or SEO. So with that being said, over the last several years, we've seen trends that have worked or have gone to the wayside, especially now with AI. Something that I've seen stay consistent since day one are those geographic pages. So if you're looking to optimize your website, ensure that it is locally optimized for those cities, counties that you are wanting to target. We have some clients who we will build almost an FAQ page about, I'm from Calhoun County, Alabama. So the Calhoun County court system, where to park, good restaurants around that area, how that county may be different than Cleburne County, Alabama, right? So those are good pages to attract. Those are super top of funnel, but it's going to bring in users. And so much of what you're trying to do with Google is just bring in users, and Google is going to increase that organic ranking. So those are good techniques. And then also make sure that your site has had an overall SEO optimization done to the site, or at least an audit of the site to ensure the technical side of SEO is performing well, meaning, and this is going to get into the weeds, but on your page, you've got to have it categorized the way that Google wants you to, with H1 tags, H2, alt tag images. Again, this is probably speaking another language, and that's okay. That's why you pay somebody like us to do it. But those are some easy ways, and then some technical ways to answer your question of how do you rank with Google. You've got to check off all the boxes in Google's algorithm, like it or not. And that's a conversation I have often with lawyers, of maybe a frustration of like, I don't understand this. That's great, but we're playing their game. We are playing Google's game. So you better have someone who does understand that game. And I can teach you about it. I can not teach you about it. You can just pay me and tell me to do it. But you've got to play their game. So you've got to handle all the technical components, but then also a little bit more common sense stuff like ranking locally for your geographic areas.
How often would you recommend a firm audit the technical stuff? Is that something that should occur like biannually, annually? What does that look like?
Yeah, annually is enough. What we do for our clients, again, if they come in and they're coming in for a website facelift, maybe it's somebody you said to me, hey, Ashley, we're running PPC for them. Their website is an absolute atrocious. Will you redo it? And so we make it, optimized for mobile, make it beautiful, make it stand out. We build really great looking design websites so they don't look like everyone else. In that project, we're also going to run that SEO audit, and we're going to see how the site is ranking, and we're going to make all those changes. So we know that we've set it up properly. And each month we actually check the SEO. We're running an SEO audit on our client sites. But if you had someone come in and they just did it one time and they didn't touch it again for the rest of the year, you would need to do it again annually. But if you've got a good team who's working on it, they're going to make sure, they should be making sure it's maintained on a consistent basis.
Kind of a technical question here, but I'm genuinely curious. What content management system are you recommending law firms use?
Content management, what do you mean? What do you specifically?
So like it's the CMS, right? So like, are you recommending like a WordPress?
The actual hosting of the site. Yes, we only build on WordPress. We host our own sites. That's not mandatory for us. I know a lot of people do that. That kind of feels slimy to me. You can host your website with us, but we only build using WordPress. There are other platforms out there. They're fine, but WordPress is still the leader in the game. Again, there's others that's trying to make a run for them, but this is a conversation that I'll surprisingly have conversations with lawyers. They hear just enough, and they're trying to understand the difference. I know, but WordPress is more expensive. They are, but they're the front runner, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
We talked a lot about content design. We talked about SEO. I'm curious, from a tracking and measurement perspective, how can law firms do a better job of tracking and analyzing their website performance to identify areas of improvement? What things are you looking at? What things are you recommending that they look at to optimize their website?
Don't try to do it on your own. You are a lawyer, practice law, hire someone who can help you. If you want to understand about Google Search Console or Google Analytics, or you've got your own SEMrush account, great, but have someone help you understand that. So to answer your original question, what are we doing? So we use SEMrush to track at the moment. That could change. There's a few different out there that are Ahrefs, or there's a few different good ones out there. Yeah, that's what we use. But we use Google Analytics and Google Search Console as well. So how can you track your website? There's so many different metrics you can track. We look at average time on site. We look at users and views and engagement and conversions and all of those things. But average time on site is one that's pretty easy to understand. It's a good one to watch for. It's a good one to see if your marketing vendor is being truthful with you. They say this is the highest ranking page. Okay, but why does it have an average 18-minute time on site? That's not normal. So are they excluding their traffic? Is that your agency spending all the time? Because your average time on site is going to be a minute and a half, 3 minutes, very dependent upon your practice area. So look for these indicators to understand if they're being truthful for you. And again, I'm kind of throwing shade on our industry, but that's when I got into it originally, helping that one guy I was telling you about. I just find that so many lawyers are being straight up lied to, and they're not being given truthful information when it comes to their metrics. So ask questions. You're looking for those few numbers. How many views did you get this month? What is the highest ranking page? That's an easy question to ask. And that's going to tell you more about your user too, right? Like we talked about identifying who your client avatar. If you look at your top 10 performing pages, that's going to tell you a lot about your traffic. And if the pages that you think should be number 1 and number 2, or they're not number 1 and number 2, then there's something off, right? And if you're an estate planning firm and your estate, learning about your estates or wills is not high ranking in your top 10 pages, then something is off in your messaging, right? So your metrics can help paint a story and help paint a picture. But like I said at the beginning of this question, is have a professional helping you, because you're not going to know what you're looking at. You can look at all this data and it's no good unless someone can help you paint a picture of what this data is telling you.
Right. Yeah. The data is useless unless you're using it to make improvements and optimizations. Otherwise, it's just interesting ones and zeros that you're keeping tabs on, right? Like you have to put someone in that seat to take the information and then start making increasingly better decisions with the data that's being tracked, whether that's, making the site load quicker, whether that's building out more content, whether that's incorporating video like you talked about, and maybe moving the video higher up on the page or further down the page based on what the data is telling you, right? That the reality is in our industry, so much of it is test and learn. It is. Like there's not a cookie cutter, perfect, like this is how the landing page should be. Like you can start from a really good starting point and template, right? But you don't know how that is going to perform based on your ICP, based on the market and how competitive it is. So yeah, no, that's all really insightful and really good tips there on how to track and more importantly, reminding the listeners that it's one thing to track it, it's another thing to synthesize it and take the information and do something with it, right? So, Ashley, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, all your knowledge in this, particular field. How can our listeners learn more about Green Cardigan Marketing Services?
Yeah, so greencardiganmarketing.com is our website. It's pretty informative. It's got good content, right? Like every website should have good content. So it'll tell you everything you need to know about us. Our social media accounts are all on there. Our email addresses, you can contact us. And then I'm really active on LinkedIn. So to find me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there and would love to connect.
One thing I love about your website is the use of video. You have such great video content on your site to educate people about your services, how it all works. So kudos to you. Ashley, thank you again so much for doing this. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Pareto Legal Podcast. We will see you next time for another episode.